Hello? Okay. Alright. Listen. Before we start the fucking stream, we gotta get ready. I don't know, dude. Alright. So, I think preparations are done. Let's prepare the stream as well. Oil prices are significantly up, which is not good. Um, oil prices. Let me just get that up. Damn. Oh wait, they're down from yesterday. Nice. Get this up, this down, refresh the cache, the chat up. Boom, boom. All right, and then we gotta open the streamer bot so we can have the chat on screen. Get the 2 out of 5. Okay, no, we're back. Nice. We like to see that, baby. Live streaming is on, right? Yeah. Alright, people, we're big time chilling. I think we're ready. Let's get into the news. Oh, wait. First, prayers, of course. Close your minds. Empty yourself. So we may start this prayer. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كنعبد وكنستعين. Actually, doing some Quranic readings wouldn't be bad today. Dude, I need to get my Quranic knowledge way up. I need to memorize the Quran. Alright, so let's pray on that then. I pray for everybody's health. I pray that we continuously are taught lessons, and those who receive these lessons learn from them. I pray for all the children who are of the new generation. I hope the world we build for them, the world that is handed off to them, is better off than the one we have today. I pray for good news every day. I pray that no one starves. I pray against people's hunger. I hope no one out there is starving, at least not on purpose. Or wait, no, not maliciously starving. I don't know. There's so much to pray for, and God is my witness. God knows what's in our hearts, and I hope He also excuses the fact that I cannot find words when there needs to be. I hope God continues to guide me on the right path. And I promise to continuously search for and stay and fight for what is right. I pray that I always find my way, which I do. So I pray that continues. Amen. Amen. Or, the Shia do not say amen. The Shia and the Sunni, one of the differences is how they end the prayer, I believe. Anyways, I put some, as you guys can see from my voice, I'm feeling a lot healthier compared to yesterday. God, yesterday I was sick AF. I don't really have plans for today's stream. I just want to read the news and then chill a bit. Maybe edit some videos. So, edit some videos and talk to people. How cool is that? Speaking of editing some videos, this is my little action camera. That I recorded myself doing some chores around the house, and they went really well. So I'm gonna edit that video and put it on my YouTube or Instagram as well. Wait. Oh, right. Attach this to. I got everything plugged in, and oh yeah, right. I need to text my friend about. Ooh, my water has boiled. A lemon ginger. Oh god, I love lemon ginger, bro. Lemon ginger is a blessing to dude, everything is a blessing around us. Sometimes I think about it. Not sometimes, actually, all the time I think about it, and I'm like, damn, dude. Everything in existence is such a freaking blessing, dude. Wow. It blows my mind. It really blows my mind. And I'm in a good weather. Even in bad weather, bro. I love the rain. I love super windy times, you know, just being shaken around. By the way, could you share the audio for the podcasts? All right, let's get into the news. It's been crazy because there's new red lines being drawn. Is what I understand. Start from end of yesterday. Alright, I don't think I covered these on stream. Did I? know it's 11:30. Alright. UAE air defense system are engaging missiles and drones right now. That's what the UAE is saying. And then a senior Trump admin official says the US warned Iran on Sunday that it would initiate a freedom of navigation mission in the Strait of Hormuz, urging Iran not to take any disruptive action. In response to the warning, Iran struck 3 commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, targeted American warships with missiles and drones, and struck the Fujairah oil industry zone. Well, the problem with, like, the Trump administration just saying this and then sending ships in is that they are constantly verbally promising to protect these, provide the escort through the Strait of Hormuz, and then this continuously happens, right? Where they urge the ships to go because they've contacted Iran and told them to better watch themselves. And so then the ships go in, they get shut down by Iran because things don't work like that. If you just tell a country to behave and hope for them to behave the certain way you want them to behave, like, well, what is that logic, Especially when you are undermining their sovereignty and just spend so much money bombing them. Like, they're not just gonna listen to you, right? Why would they? And so them verbally saying this, and then so the Trump administration urges other people to go to Strait of Hormuz, and those people who go through the Strait of Hormuz, they don't. There's also seemingly there is no good system set up yet for these cargo ships to get permission from Iran to go through it. There's been reports of ships getting scammed, actually. That's one thing. And then but even so, right, I mean, there must be a way, because a Japanese ship passed by. Like, the UAE people are not going to take permission from Iran to send their ships through the Strait of Hormuz, because they're just inherently against the Iranian regime and they hate him, and they don't want to concede, and so yeah, um, America goads them. They go, they get shot, and then they bitch about it. They act all surprised, and they're like, we're victims. Okay, bro. Okay, little bro. Alright, so this is today. Trump said, oh, that was yesterday. Trump said Iran should do the smart thing. We don't want to go in and kill people. I don't want to do that. Well, that's weird to say. What do you mean kill people? Like, I thought this was about the regime and the government. Why? What do you mean by kill people? And of course, this page is mocking them, right? Because I don't know, like the school, the drone that hit the school. One thing that bothers me about the drone that hit the school, I mean, there's no denying that many little girls died, but the number keeps changing. That really pisses me off, because I want to be empathetic to a real number of people or children who are being killed in this war. I cannot just be empathetic to a non-existing thing, right? So I hate the fact that the numbers keep changing. In my heart, I practice like praying for 160 girls, and then one day they say it's 168, another they say it's 150, and it's on an emotional level for me as an Iranian. I feel like there's some bigotry going on here. فرماندهی نیروی دریایی سپاه پاسداران هشدار واضح به تمام شناورهای که Yesterday, the U.S. terrorist army dangerously disrupted maritime security in the region. In the region. All right. Where we at? Yo, I know what I need. I need to hit a set before I get into this depressing news, bro. Dude, I don't want to do the news today. I do want to do the news, but dude, I've been doing the news for 3 days. How do news reporters do this every day, bro? That's insane. Holy shit. Oh. Alright, yesterday the U.S. terrorist army dangerously disrupted maritime security in the region, endangering navigation safety in the Strait of Hormuz, and damaged commercial vessels, oil tankers, and fishing boats in the area. They actually did. They struck 2 civilian boats and then called it, like, I think Trump called it, like, terrorist speedboats or something. I don't know. It was ridiculous. R.I.P. I don't know if there's anyone died. They didn't say anything about people dying on those boats, but they did, bro. R.I.P. We warn all vessels in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman intelligent intending to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The only safe route for crossing the Strait of Hormuz is the corridor previously announced by the Iran. Deviation of vessels to other routes is unsafe and will be met with decisive action by the IRGC Navy. Iran's Joint Military Command warns of a crushing response if any action is taken by the UAE against Iran's islands, ports, and coastline. My family lives on the coastline. Oh my god, bro. I need my tea, dude. That's the problem, dude. I had to get my freaking tea up, dude. BEAU. I'm wondering, like, where is my energy, dude? Where's my energy? Where's my pizzazz, dude? Where's my go get it attitude? Where's my, must be a word for it, right? The spirit, the ki. In Japanese, ki, yaru ki. Where's the ki at, dude? Where's the spirit? I'm wondering, where did it go? Because I've been a good boy this morning. I made my bed. I could have been a better boy and like done more stuff, but I really wanted to get down to the nitty gritty. I'm gonna be honest, dude. This morning I woke up like very, very fucking like hazy. Hazy? I don't know. It's just I think I'm getting used to who I'm becoming. Because I've been having a lot of new experiences, and so I'm not seeing and being the same person anymore, and I'm evolving, dude. I'm getting better every day, and I'm getting used to this better version of myself. And I freaking love it, and I want to continue it. So I need to get used to it. Some people are so good at getting used to stuff, where like, I mean, maybe to an ordinary person, I'm also like more on the side of a person who gets used to stuff quickly. But I've seen people who are better than me at getting used to things, and I want to be. So me knowing that there's people better than me out there, shows me that it is possible, and so I should achieve to be better. 'Cause like, why would anyone try to achieve betterment that is not necessary, like, or doesn't exist, right? So like, being better is an idea until you see it, you know what I mean? So that's what it is, right? I've seen people being better, and because it is possible, I too want to achieve it. I want to go beyond it, dude. I want to get to a point where other people see me and are like, okay, well, he achieved it, so we can achieve it too. Now that's the current dream and goal right now. to be a leading role model. Khatam al-Anbiya warns the UAE that they should not become a nest for the US and Zionist military equipment as an Islamic land. We were talking about this yesterday, where like it just doesn't make sense for the UAE or the GCC countries. It makes more sense for the GCC countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman to become more friendly towards Iran than America and Israel. But despite that, like, they always claim political reasonings behind their choices. And if you want to think about it politically as well, like political power wise, it is more beneficial for the UAE to be friends with Iran, right? And the reasoning that I thought of yesterday and I mentioned in the stream was how the UAE historically has sold some of its oil in the Chinese yuan, and they do want to broaden their sort of like ability to sell oil to like those countries, China and whatever, in the Chinese yuan. And well, Iran is an ally of China, at least economically, and so, and America isn't. In fact, America is forcing them to not expand their oil sales and oil trade. They're trying to control them. So yeah, fucking, and they're Muslims. They're both Muslims. So it doesn't make sense. Very, very coincidentally, the US sent one KC-46A and one KC-135R from Ramstein to Tel Aviv. Ramstein, is that where like our boy BB is? Both got replaced. What do you mean replaced? So what, they... This is a military aircraft? That's crazy that normal people can just track planes. Iran's foreign ministry condemns Abu Dhabi for cooperating with the US Israel against Iran, especially by hosting military base. The MFA now also officially rejects UAE claims that Iran launched missiles or drones at the Emirates, saying Iran's actions are only aimed at repelling US aggression. Tehran warns that continued military logistical cooperation against Iran is unacceptable and says Iran will take any necessary measures to defend its national security. That's fucked up, because I mean, I have a question, right? So like, if they're rejecting the claims that Iran launched missiles or drones at the Emirates, I mean, then what were the pictures we saw yesterday, right? So because we saw like pictures of missiles being shot from Bandar Abbas or something like that in Iran, and people said they heard, and there was like some video releases or whatever, right? So we have proof that they did, but or maybe they by claiming this, they mean that the place they hit in the UAE was solely like Americans and used by Americans. That's why they shot it, and it is not exactly UAE, and so don't continue to cooperate with them, or else it's gonna, next time it will really be UAE. Scary stuff, scary stuff. My God.
Can flow through.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Last 24 hours or so, Iran's fired at us. We fired at Iran. Just going to ask you more directly: is the ceasefire over?
Flow through.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Last 24 hours or so, Iran's fired at us. We fired at Iran. Just going to ask you more directly: is the ceasefire over?
No.
No, the ceasefire
Not yet.
is not over. Ultimately, this is a separate and distinct project, and we expected there would be some churn at the beginning, which happened. And we said we would defend and defend aggressively, and we absolutely have. Iran knows that, and ultimately, the president's going to make a decision whether anything were to escalate into a violation of a ceasefire. But certainly, we would urge Iran to be prudent in the actions that they take to keep that underneath this threshold. This is about the straits. This is about freedom of navigation. This is about international waterways. This is about free flow of commerce. All
They
the things
say
that
this,
happen
and they literally have
and
blocked
only Iran is
international
contesting.
waterway against international like
Freedom
laws.
of navigation. This is about
That's insane.
international waterways. This is about free flow of commerce. All the things that happened before, and only Iran is contesting. So right now the ceasefire certainly holds, but we're going to be watching very, very closely. Absolutely.
Secretary Hegseth.
James, go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, thank you.
And how I knew it wasn't the ceasefire is not over is because if it was, everybody would be screaming it. Israel coordinating with the U.S. as escalating Strait of Hormuz tensions risks Iran ceasefire. Okay, bro. Yeah, this is pushing propaganda, am I right? A round of strikes on Iran. I mean, big part of propaganda is exaggerating situations, right? Like, in the scope of, like, what is going on, these things aren't the way they're made out to be. Like, it's not that... It's not big enough of a situation to be, like... Especially, like, a militaristic country like Israel, just military in general, they're always ready to go, right? So, coordinating with the rising, what is it? Coordinating with the U.S. Strait of Hormuz tension. What is the coordination includes preparing, right? Preparing for possible new round of strikes, right? They're always prepared for possible attacks. That's the whole point of a military. So, when I read news like this, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, bro, that's the whole point of a military. They're always ready to strike. You can't just, like, come out and say it and make it sound like they weren't ready to strike yesterday or a minute ago or 2 days ago or something like that. But, you know, saying it like this exaggerates. Is exaggerating the whole thing of, like... is exaggerating how oh yeah, no, they weren't prepared before, but now they're preparing. Okay. Ooh, so scary. Bro, it's fucking Israel. Militaristic nation. They're always ready to go to war. The UAE Defense Ministry of Defense, MOD, mod. They're modding, bro. When asked about limiting Iran's ballistic missile program. Look, missiles are bad, yeah, but this is about that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they don't have a nuclear weapon. They're not even planning on making a nuclear weapon.
Two U.S. commercial ships, along with American destroyers.
He's probably gonna say, "We have your back. We'll escort you. You guys should go and do the fucking, go through the strait." Some bullshit like that. I'm just calling it. I'm not sure if that's what he's gonna say. But it's fun. It's a fun game to play. Calling out their lies and see if they're still continuing the same narratives.
Destroyers have already safely transited the strait, showing the lane is clear. We know the Iranians are embarrassed by this fact. They said they control the strait. They do not. So American ships led the way, commercial and military, shouldering the initial risk from the front, as Americans always do. And right now, hundreds more ships from nations around the world are lining up to transit.
Right. They aren't, though. Straight up lying.
As a direct gift from the United States to the world, we have established a powerful red, white, and blue...
This tea is waking me up, boys.
American destroyers are on station, supported by hundreds of fighter jets, helicopters, drones, and surveillance aircraft, providing 24
God, I love
overwatch
ginger.
for two U.S. Iran is the clear aggressor. As a direct gift from the United States to the world, we have established a powerful red, white, and blue dome over the strait. American destroyers are on station, supported by hundreds of fighters.
Yeah, just like they established a red, white, and blue dome over Israel and the UAE. What happened? Nothing. They still got shot.
Jets, helicopters, drones, and surveillance aircraft, providing 24/7 overwatch for peaceful commercial vessels. Iran is the clear aggressor, harassing civilian vessels, threatening mariners from every nation indiscriminately, and weaponizing a critical choke point for its own financial benefit, or at least trying to.
Dear viewers, this is exactly what a real-time narration rewriting looks like. They're changing history in real time. Don't fall for it. Follow on Twitch and Kick /cafe_Rudy for anti-fake history narrative lessons like this. I don't stream every day though, but I do have a Discord community you guys can keep up with.
Iran is the clear aggressor, harassing civilian vessels, threatening mariners from every nation.
Damn. This reminds me of one time I had a car accident. And, well, the guy was parked illegally in, like, a spot. And it was dark, and I didn't see his car in my rearview mirror. Anyways, I scratched it. And I had to pay a lot of money for the car. And what happened was, so I spoke to my insurance, and I told them the situation. I told them, hey, they were illegally parked. Right? The police, of course, we called the police. The police came. The police didn't tell the guy nothing about him illegally parking. Anyways, I ended up paying a shit ton of money. It was like I paid an equal amount of a new car to the guy because he had a cheap car. And what happened was, I saw him parked illegally in the same spot like a few weeks after that, because it was like in front of my friend's house whom I was visiting again. And so I contacted my insurance and I told them, I took pictures and everything. I told them, hey, listen, I took pictures of the car. This clearly been fixed. And so, yeah, like, this is not what I paid for. I paid for a brand new car. The guy just fixed his car, not even like completely. And so what about the rest of the money? Why do I have to pay so much? And the insurance told me, well, him being parked illegally and you hitting him is two different cases, and if you want to fight it, like, you have to fight them separately, and winning in that situation is very difficult and costly, so it's just better to pay him. And this is, so what this guy is doing kind of makes it feel the same, right? Because they're the ones who attacked Iran, which caused Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz, right? And so in doing so, right, they warned everybody, hey, the strait is closed, and if you come to the strait without my permission, without paying my tolls, I will attack you, right? And America doesn't care about that, and they urge people to do it, and whoever that has tried so far got attacked as Iran warned them, right? But then, so they take this situation that is all interconnected and they turn it into different cases. So they're like, okay, no, it's not that Iran set boundaries and they violated it. No, that's a different case. Iran is attacking them. So Iran is the aggressor. No, forget about everything else. Iran is attacking them. Iran is the aggressor. This is information they're using, like, and then so essentially what they want is Iran to pay for all these damages. This is how they win their cases. It's all just a scummy, literally scammy and scummy insurance policy, bro. Insurance ass fucking type beat.
Indiscriminately, and weaponizing a critical choke point for its own financial benefit, or at least trying to.
Wow. So it seems like, I mean, Hezbollah has carried out 15 operations. Seems like maybe Israel was doing something already before the ceasefire was over. It says U.S. warned Iran on Sunday that, okay, we already read this. We once again warn all vessels intending to pass through the Strait of that only safe route will be passing the Suez through Islamic Republic of Iran. Deviation of vessels other routes is unsafe and will face a decisive response from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy.
They should wave the white flag of surrender. In hockey, they say, "Uncle," right? When are they gonna cry uncle? But Iran has no chance. They never did. They know it. They express it to me when I talk to them. Then they get on television. They say how well they're doing. And they have no Navy, totally wiped out. They have no Air Force, totally wiped out. They have no anti-aircraft.
Bro, he's been repeating these things for 2 months now. It's like day 70 of the war. It's 2 months. Can't just last 2 months with a wiped out Navy and military and everything else.
Capability, totally wiped out, no radar. They have no leaders. The leaders are wiped out, the whole thing. And then I read the papers and they say how well they're doing. They're not doing well. That's why you have no credibility. No credibility. The news, the fake news has no credibility, but
Dude, Trump is not looking good, bro.
Iran has no chance.
Is it just me, or?
They know it. They express it to me when
Bro's
I talk.
aged.
Then they get on television, they say how
Being a
well they're doing.
being a United States president really sucks the life out of you, huh?
And they have no Navy, totally wiped out. They have no Air Force, totally wiped out. They have no anti-aircraft capability, totally wiped out. No.
PGSA, a new legal framework for passage through the. Okay, they're creating systems now. That's good. I mean, that was one of the main issues. There was no framework, system framework. With the framework, Strait of Hormuz reinforces Iran's sovereign territory. Well, we Muslims have already submitted to the Almighty God. No one else can make us surrender. In my call with Iraq's Prime Minister Ali Falih al-Zaidi, I urged him to make the U.S. withdraw its military threat from our region. Followers of the Shia school of thought cannot be forced to submit, not even by force. Iran said 136 drones attacked a headquarters of Komala Party of Iranian Kurdistan in Iraqi Kurdistan. What is Komala? Is it Komala? Komala. Wow. Okay, they sound Zio. Wow. So I don't get it. Like, Damn. Iran and Japan. That's insane. Okay. Alright, they're working on an agreement. Let's go. Yeah, this turned out to be this turned out to be civilian boats. Okay, so okay. So we don't know who hit the Fujairah port. Increase in gasoline prices in the US. Yeah. Who's this little goblin in the back, dude? Damn. Alright, well, that's about it. That's the news for today, boys. Let me top up my nuke 'em both. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, just start Armageddon and get it over with. Low key. It's been feeling like that. No, bro, what do you mean nuke 'em both? My parents live there. My friends live there. We all live there. Yeah, nuke Japan again as well. Nuke Korea. Dude, America's really big. How would you start nuking America? Like the USA? How would you nuke USA, bro? It's just way too big. Okay, bro. It's not that serious. Japan is based. I say nuke North Shore. North Korea for sure. Nuke North Korea for sure. I don't know, dude. We don't really know what's going on in North Korea. Maybe North Korea is also based. Damn, she's slaying. What is this? Tehran? No, right? You would really want to nuke this place? That's the thing. I say let's. Oh my god, dude. Let me get tea, bro. I need tea, bro. My day hasn't even started yet. semiconductor.
Look at Intel stock. Intel and fucking SanDisk. What the fuck? That's actually crazy.
What is it up for?
Bro, look.
Oh, it's up 12.
12%.
That's almost 13.
Look in the past 5 days.
Today it's up 12,
In
13%.
one day.
What?
And Panasonic. Not
Yeah.
Panasonic. Actually, look, Panasonic. I don't know. But SanDisk as well. What the fuck, dude? This is crazy.
Oh
Check-
shit.
check,
12% just today.
this is scary.
31.
Check
Get me out, bro.
hold on, check out like Panasonic. I'm curious. And Micron. Okay. What about 5 days? That's still crazy, like 3%.
Yeah, Panasonic has been
That's
needing to
crazy.
win.
Okay, check Micron.
I don't wanna, dude. Oh shit.
Semiconductors.
Oh my god. I'm gonna puke.
So wait, what does this mean? Does this mean like semiconductors are more expensive?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
or they're more valuable. But why is it like this? Can you give us a little breakdown?
I have no idea.
Do I
Wait,
believe in
memory.
physiognomy?
No, wait, maybe this is
No.
memory. Maybe this is memory.
Memory cards?
I don't know if this is memory or like compute. I mean, memory is getting expensive, but why would it get more expensive like all of a sudden? I thought it was already at its fucking peak. You know what I'm saying? Like, if shit's gonna get more expensive, then computers aren't gonna be consumer hardware anymore. Like, we will not be able to buy computers.
Straight up?
You know what I'm saying?
What are we supposed to do? Rent computers from now on?
Yeah. That is a model. Jesus Christ, this is crazy.
Well, let us know if you find out why the prices are skyrocketing. All right, back to the chat. What do you mean cut my hair? I gotta look crazy, bro. It's a crazy world. I gotta start looking crazy. No, I'm waiting to braid my hair. Cornrows, baby.
This has me a little scared. I think I'm gonna sell.
No. My hair's clean, bro. What are you talking about? Scarabs. No, what the My hair smells like firecrackers, bro. I'm like Einstein. You know that Jewish scientist who stole patents? I'm a genius. High IQ. That's me right now. I mean, dude, it is summer. It's getting hot, and cutting my hair also fucking ridiculously improves my shower time. God, dude, cause I have curly hair too. You gotta like soak it and then separate it and then start washing it. But then because it's curly, you can't just run your hand through it. You gotta like rub things in, and then like continue rubbing in, but then that makes it like get tangled, so you gotta like gently rub it in, make sure it gets everywhere. What is a chest vest? I can use it. Shit looks dehydrated as the Sahara. I can use it as a tinder for my next camping trip. Timber. Now my hair doesn't burn so easily. Ah, I'm neither, bro. I'm Persian. We have the Ah, damn. The Zulfiqar, you know the Zulfiqar? Yeah, this is who we are. We're the Zulfiqari people.
Hello, it's still Friday night. I'm still at this fascinating little meeting with these amazing Shia guys here in South London. And let me show you
South
this because
London.
it's something you'll see quite often.
Oi.
You'll see this as sometimes little pendants. You'll see people.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of videos on Instagram and TikTok of people
On
wearing
TikTok?
little pendants.
Get me
You will
out.
see this.
I'm not Zulfiqari anymore. We're on TikTok? Hell no. No, I'm just kidding. Let's
Hello,
go
it's
back.
still Friday night. I'm still at this wearing a little pendant. You will see this in the city where you live. And what it is this sword called Zulfiqar. It's sometimes written with a Z, sometimes written with a DH, because of course it's Arabic. So it's a consonant that doesn't exist in English. So this is why you always struggle using Roman letters. But it's Zulfiqar. And what it is the
Damn, that was a
sword
good pronunciation.
that the Shias believe was given to their prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam
Oh my god, bro is hitting it.
by the angel.
Honestly, for IED, it was insane. For aid, IED. They did a massive raid today that killed 30. Where? Where? What are you on about?
Gabriel. And then he gave it to his cousin and son-in-law, Imam Ali. And then Ali used it, the Prophet said,
But where's the sword now? Who's got the sword?
phrase, there is no youth like Ali and there is no sword like Zulfiqar. And so this became a well-known phrase. So that's what it is. That's why you see it. If you see anyone with this
This is why Shia Islam is the goated, the most goated religion amongst all. Unknown and considered lost to history. While a sword is displayed in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul, many believe the true split-tipped Zulfiqar is held by Imam Mahdi alaikum assalam. I don't know, bro. A 2021 claim suggests Swiss collector possesses an authenticated sword. That sounds like a whole lot of BS. You want to get your own sword, bro? They sell it out here. No, but do they though? Like, is this real though? No way, dude. No way, dude. Yo, this is goated. They even got kitchen knives, bro. I would love to have a Zulfiqar shaped kitchen knife. But it's insane. Imagine, like, an angel of God gives you a weapon to kill your enemies with, and it's like a sword. Like, why wouldn't you give the guy a gun? Sounds like sounds like skill issue. Like, if I was an angel and I'm gonna give a prophet like a weapon to defeat his enemies with, it would be like some like actual like useful thing, you know? Like giving the man a sword, you know? Like giving the man a sword, you know? What is going on? Alright. I've seen this. Bro, I quit smoking and I'm still keeping it up too. So, oh, it's already been 5 months. Holy shit. Time flies, huh? Fuck. I thought, why did I quit? Because um, I wanted to, I mean, like, simply put, I just wanted to focus on work. I realized that, like, from here on forwards, like, I was smoking to kind of like, I initially started smoking because, like, as a way to, like, take a break, you know, clear my mind or whatever, like, just chill, you know. And so I was like drinking, you know, and then the problem with drinking is, like, you know, you can't do work after, you know, like, you can't just drink and work. I mean, you could, and I was, but then at some point stress started getting worse, and drinking every day was like an issue. So I was like, dude, I need something more sustainable. I started smoking. But then, you know, like, cuz I'm accelerating, bro. I'm hella accelerating. And so you know, my stress is just like, life just be like stressing me the fuck out, and then the smoking got really bad. And then so I quit smoking, I started drinking, right? But then when I started drinking, right, I was just drinking and smoking at the same time, and my lungs were hurting because, like, I was smoking like a pack a day. Like, I think there was days where I smoked more than a pack a day. And so I realized, like, fuck, I'm not gonna survive if I can't handle my own, like, this whole, like, stress thing, figure out this whole stress thing. Like, I won't be able to enjoy drinking, I won't be able to enjoy smoking. So instead, I'm actually, and I have, like, more work coming my way anyways. So I'm gonna figure out how to handle all this shit by myself without any aid, and get my work done. And then when I succeed in doing that, will I start drinking and smoking again. So I haven't, like, I'm not like an AA fucking, like, oh, I've given up smoking forever. Nah, bro. I'll definitely be back smoking, like, good stuff, and drinking, like, good shit. But, like, I don't drink like that anymore. Like, you know, like, we get people coming over, like, for business and stuff, and, you know, like, in Japan there's there's like thank you. So, you know, we even got, like, a wine cellar now. So when we invite people over, we do some business, and then we have, like, nomikai and whatever. And so I do be tasting the wine and shit, because we got really good sake out here in Hiroshima. So it'd be a waste to, like, not know the taste of it, you know? So I don't be like, oh my god, no, keep that away from me, or else I'm gonna, you know? I'd be like, you know, I taste it, and then I'm like, alright, that's good, that's chill. And it works out because, then, you know, when our guests who come over, you know, and we do business, and, you know, we get drunk together, when they want to leave, because I'm not drunk, I just drive them home, so they don't even need to get a taxi. So we do a whole full service type shit. It's so intimate, and, like, it's, like, so cool, and they love it, dude. They love it. They be loving us, bro. I am all in, bro. You got no idea how deep in it I am, bro. I'm 150% in it. I'm so in it that I don't even drink anymore or smoke anymore, just because to stay in it. Like, what do you mean you drink to forget about work and relax? No. No. Get that shit away from me. If that's what it does, get it away from me. I need to stay locked in. That's the vibe, dude.
I'm trying to turn this etch
I'm trying to be a little bitch, bro. Dude is etch and sketching.
sketch into a customized.
Bro has an etch and sketch fucking page, bro. How beta cuck do you gotta be? Get your shit up. Get your game up, bro. Stop etching sketching. Alright. Well, I mean, news is over. Unless you guys want me to do anything. I got some... I kind of want to edit some videos. Let's just have chats and I'll edit some videos. Yeah. It's a chill day today. It's the final day of Golden Week for me. So from tomorrow, we're going to be back on like doing hella work. Pushing our app on the campus. Getting There's the Phineas and Ferb reboot? Nah. Where's the... what is this? Elecom? Damn. My drive DB heavy, bro. Sure. What? Oh, this transcend USB drive G? Is it this? Type shit, type shit. How's it going, Jeff? Are these pictures? Oh, this is pictures. These are videos? I'm so confused. Wait. What is LRFs? What? I'm so confused, dude. Yeah. Alright, so how are they numbered? 2026 04. What does it say 04? Oh 415 There's one in between each of them. Do I need both? $120, no. What? Why am I being sold to? How dare you say the N-word? Who? No one has said the N-word on this stream. Especially not in the chat. What are you talking about? Dude, there is no person like named Yogo Lit. What are you talking about? Oh, you mean Yogo, who's lit. What if he's black though? Wouldn't that be okay? I'm not sure. I'm not very up to date with the American PC knowledge. I just be vibing, dude. He's like Stevie Wonder Black. Because I say. Oh, then he's definitely black because I haven't seen him say it with an ER. They can only say it ER. Who makes these rules, bro? Who makes these rules? Like, wait. I love it. I love it. I need a VLC. Freaking. Okay. No one makes them, but rappers use ER in rap music sometimes. My favorite rapper, black rapper, and I think he, they, them, Giger are the best in like hip hop history is this guy called I don't know if you guys know him. He's very obscure. Lil Nas X, bro.
He's not fucking obscure. What?
He's like the best black rapper I've ever seen. And the best white rapper I've ever heard rap is he's actually Jewish. He's called Lil Dicky. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with him or not.
That they have a moral obligation to society, that they should care for everybody else, right? And the funny thing is it's really neither of those things, because the thing is, I've always...
I thought all Jewish people are white. No, am I mistaken? Like Jeff has a 1% black heritage in his blood. Like does that allow him to say it with ER? At least he is he black?
That's not true.
So like depends on what kind of a who you're talking about. One drop rule. Okay, so then Jeff can say ER or the N word on stream and it'll be alright.
always been of the mentality.
According to your American rules. And wait, but then like, you know, what if a person is like 1% of every single like ethnicity and religious background blood in them? Like, how do you even trace that? Like, they can just say whatever.
Why does it work now?
What are you working on, Jeff?
This work.
Which one, the Ahmed project or the Convex project?
I'm in.
Mentality is that if I can make my own way in life You know, it doesn't really matter.
There's a thing
to me
called
if
white
somebody has a
passing.
yacht, a
Wait, are you
mansion,
black?
10 yachts or 100 mansions, because if I can work hard and honestly in my life, then none of these things matter to me. Somebody being independently wealthy across the planet, on the other
They
side
would
of
be
the
the
planet
most
from me, has
healthy?
no bearing on my life.
I think
I
they
don't
would
even
not
consider
be
it
the
their
most
moral
healthy, dude. You
obligation
do not want to be
care
too
about me,
mixed.
which is kind of funny, is because a lot of DSA top
'Cause
leftists
the more pure you see your people from your country, right? The people of the land, they literally evolve to resist those, like, I don't know, to be able to live better in that environment. So if you're mixed with everybody, you literally don't have a single place you can comfortably live in.
will go out on the street screaming.
Like, it's a lot easier for me to handle the hot weather or the dry weather, and, like, you know, things like that, compared to, like, Jeff. Whereas, like, for me, I hate the cold, bro. I hate the cold so much. I cannot survive in the cold. Like, it breaks my mind down. Like, also, if I don't see the sunlight for, like, more than, like, a week, I genuinely just, I don't function. But then you see all this Finnish people, all these British people, they just be walking around normal, fine. You bring them into the sun, they melt.
About
They
how
get
they don't
cancer.
care about you. Yeah, I know the wealthy don't care about me. I don't care about them either, and I don't think they have the moral obligation to care about me. But the problem is that my problem with the
something like
wealthy
that.
doesn't come from a sense of agreeing with the political left on why they hate the wealthy. I hate the wealthy from the perspective of a disenfranchised ex-right-wing libertarian, because the fact is that I used to be a very strong, ardent supporter of free market capitalism, and if you probably couldn't tell if you watch my channel, a lot of the values such as meritocracy and competition, I still hold to value and account in my heart. I still believe these things are, you know, conducive to a good civilization. I believe that when you do have competition, you know, the best is allowed to rise to the top. The cream rises to the top through competition. I still believe that idea. I'm still a meritocrat when it comes to things at the end of the day. I believe the best should be the ones that are leading things. Because at the end of the day, I want somebody competent. And if somebody's doing open heart surgery on me, or somebody is my doctor, I want them to be competent. I want them to be the best of the best. And I think most people, and I would argue that most people become hard meritocrats when it comes to their doctor as well, or if somebody's been, you know, tasked with performing open heart surgery on them. Nobody wants to have somebody who is not competent doing vital things. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, when I say I hate the wealthy, it's not because of the leftist collectivist notion of, like, community spirit.
This guy is has some wrong views, bro. Like, being a leader is not about being the best. It's about being one of the best, but also being a leader doesn't mean you do everything yourself. In fact, it's about knowing who would be the best for certain things, right? And a leader knows how to listen, a leader knows how to act, all these things. And just being the best at something doesn't make you automatically, shouldn't make you, like, allow you to be the leader, unless, like, you also know how to be a leader and are the best at that one thing. Think about the most mixed societies: Rome and Brazil, Caribbeans. But the textbook example of libertarian being so tired of capitalism that he is siding with socialism out of self-preservation. Yeah.
Or the wealthy have, like, an obligation to show.
I don't know. I don't
everybody
trust the
else.
guy with an anime avatar sitting like this with what is this in the background? Is that, I forgot the name of this game, StarCraft? Talking about leadership and meritocracy. Well, he has a lot of viewers because these people are all, I don't know why he has it. Probably because the Zios are pushing his slop to, like, you know, push the whole ideas of meritocracy, right? I don't know. Could be, could be. But this guy, I really like this guy, Johnny Harris. I actually have a friend, his name is John Harris.
The Middle East, the part of Asia.
But it's not this guy.
European.
This guy's videos are very well produced and very well researched. I like him very much. And he used to be an ex-Mormon too, so.
See as the middle of what they see as the East.
He's racist. West Asia. Well, I mean, right now he's defining what Middle East is before getting into it, right? Because you can't say, like, you know, with West Asia, like, you know, here I think so, you know, he has a very academic mindset to approaching it. So in academia, when you are about to approach subjects, what you gotta do is define, is like have an introduction, and then you get into definitions, right? So you define the words you're about to do, right? So you always define your own parameters before you have your discussions, so it's easier. So as you have your discussion and you get into your discussion and summary and, you know, the whole points you're trying to make, it's clear what you're talking about. Do we call ourselves the Middle East? I mean, I think most people do, yeah.
Europeans see as the middle of what they.
Maybe because of like the kind of like conversations he's trying to get into. Because if you want to talk about it, like Turkey's not part of Middle East, but he's included Turkey in this as well. Egypt is not part of Middle East, right? Egypt is like what, North Africa, right? Like, so, you know, he's clearly building parameters for a certain discussion is about to have around this definition of the Middle East. Or, you know, because right now this post was posted a month ago. I don't know why I'm defending him, right? Because the points I'm just making these, I'm not like trying to defend him, because the points I'm saying will the video itself should be able to clarify it, right? So let's watch it. I mean, like, we're not even like, you're absolutely right. Like as a person, dude, when I was growing up in geography class, they told us we're Asians, we're West Asians. And then by the time I reached like high school, right, the term Middle East was becoming popular. And I was like, what is Middle East? What is Middle East? They're like, you're Middle Eastern. And I was always like, to this day, I'm like, bro, I'm Asian. What is Middle East? What is this Middle East you refer to? And so, yeah. I mean, probably most Iranians call themselves Middle Eastern because everybody has been brainwashed to call us Middle Eastern anyways. So for like simplicity sake, it's easier to get into the conversation, right? You don't have to always define what Middle East is. You just talk about your country now. Oh, you mean like Arab? You're an Arab? No, bro, I'm Iranian from the Middle East. But Middle Easterns are all Arabs. No, bro. Like, there's different languages too and cultures. It's pretty big.
They see as the East.
Yeah.
Sort of arbitrary. Whatever. We call.
See, sort of arbitrary. Even he says it. Whatever. See, this is the attitude, right? You're like, this is the attitude that the Western framework has, the Zioslop has created. Because the more arbitrary they can make things, they don't even like, you know, push things based off of their own education that they teach, right? It's easier for them to push certain images, right? So it's like, this is literally the attitude right here. Sort of arbitrary, whatever. We call it the Middle East. And imagine like you're a West Asian, and then you like leave the country for the first time, because we don't define ourselves as Middle Eastern, right? We define ourselves by international educational standards, which is like, this is Asia, this is Europe, this is Africa, this is Oceania, this is North America, this is South America, you know? And then you leave the country for the first time, and then everybody has this attitude. It's very confusing. It's a bit of a whiplash. Yeah, probably.
Called the Middle East. This part of the world is literally where civilization started, right here in modern-day Iraq. And over the years, the borders here have been redrawn many times as empires have ebbed and flowed through this region. By the way, I didn't make this time-lapse. A very talented YouTuber did, and he deserves a medal for it. Or perhaps just a new patron. Thanks, man. Anyway, the most recent carving up of this region happened by European powers. The French, the British, the Russians. I mean, are we...
So yeah, this guy, I like his videos.
Are we surprised? No. Like, of course it was the British, of course it was the French, of course it was Europeans, of course. The lines they drew didn't really take into account language or ethnicity or regional identity. They just sort of sliced it all up amongst themselves.
He's an ex-Mormon.
These are
Of course he's gonna have this attitude.
Power in the Middle East. Eventually those European powers left, but the lines they drew stuck around and became the skeleton for what the borders look like today. And
the
this
Ottoman
is where
Empire.
our story starts. In the 1930s, here in the modern Middle East. At this point, across the ocean, there was this growing superpower that had spent the last century moving west, taking over this whole continent and beyond, deep into the Pacific Ocean. We've talked about that a bit. But things were changing. The world had just fought a brutal world war that was fought with new weapons that were powered by this new important substance, oil. Germany lost that war, in part because they didn't have access to enough oil to keep up
Dude,
with
that's
this
what
new
I'm saying.
style of
Like, but the problem with America is that, you know, I thought the Zio influence kind of started post-World War. But the more I learn I realize that the Zio influence in America has always existed. So if America had taken over the world, it would have just been the same situation of like Israel trying to take over the world.
warfare that relied a lot more on machines. The young superpower realized that access to this stuff would determine who would be powerful and who would not. So they stopped looking west for a moment and turned east, with hopes of finding the fuel they needed to build their power. The US presence in the Middle East started with one little dot, right here. But soon that dot would expand into a sprawling network of alliances, covert attacks, flows of weapons, money, and the building of innumerable bases,
He got assassinated.
and eventually turning into full-on ground
by
wars.
CIA, I think. I don't know. I think it was CIA who assassinated
This is how the US stole the Middle East.
Ready and willing to employ all means necessary.
Okay, so it's the 1930s.
Bro looks like such
This
a
is how
bot.
the US stole the
Necessary. Ready and willing to employ
Look at this.
all
Fucking some brainwashing media right here. What does this guy mean, stole? Be for real, bro.
means necessary.
Okay, so it's the 1930s.
It wasn't
and
theirs,
the US
bro.
doesn't have a significant presence in
I mean, the world belongs to America, right? So it's never stealing. It was promised to them 3,000 years ago.
at this point. But that's about to change because there's a company based in California that wants to explore this vast desert for oil.
I'm so like I'm very intrigued and like I mean it's a 3-hour fucking video. Holy shit, I just noticed. Okay. So is he gonna get into how like Israel? Is he gonna talk about how Israel helped with the whole thing? Oh shit.
Miles from San Francisco. There lies a primeval
This ass wiping was
a
promised.
mass of drifting sand and
Ass
sun-baked
whooping.
earth 1/3 the size
Yeah.
of the United States.
This was sort of a risky decision for the California company because, first off, they had no idea if there was actually any oil here.
They did.
It
They
would
knew.
mean sinking into the desert the money of thousands of stockholders in a project that might well end in complete loss.
And second off, this desert was a part of a very hardcore religious kingdom.
The fact that Mecca is the source and the shrine of Islam gives Saudi Arabia a central place in the Islamic and therefore the Arab world.
That was home to the holiest sites in Islam, run by a dogmatic royal family that did not like outsiders, especially non-believing Westerners. But even still, the king of the desert kingdom...
He was goated, bro. He was goated, but then they took care of him.
Eventually gives the California company permission to explore almost 1 million square kilometers of this desert looking for oil. And after a few years, the bet paid off. And on March 3rd, 1938,
that would be hilarious.
In this little patch of coastal desert, they struck gold. Well, actually, they struck oil, but
like you go to Mecca, you finally go to Mecca, and you take the you take the cover off, and it literally just says "Made in China," made in the Republic of China.
So throughout the 30s and 40s, American oil executives, workers, and their families started flocking to the Middle East, establishing the first significant American presence in the region. They set up little cities around the oil operation that were little slices of America, full of the deepest sinful behavior, like allowing women to drive and the consumption
Oh
of
my
alcohol.
god.
Here's
So
another
bad.
American colony, complete with
How
air
dare you let
conditioned
women
houses, air-conditioned
on a
houses.
camel, dude? Here, you only see these images here on Twitch Cafe _ Rudy, bro. That's why you come to this channel. Hello. Sorry, I didn't see the kick.
2 hospitals and an outdoor movie theater.
This is the sort of stuff
I had a
that
comment
is
on Kick I
very
didn't
off
see.
limits in Saudi Arabia. It's literally illegal at this point. So you have a lot of Saudis who are not happy about their government letting the Americans in to behave however they want. But the oil kept flowing. And soon the US government goes to the royal family and says, listen, the oil is flowing better than ever. This is awesome. How about we build a little military base attached to our little oil city so that we can, you know, protect you and protect us and protect the oil and stuff. And the Saudis are like, okay, having the great Satan come to our country for oil is one thing, but letting them set up a full-on military base on our soil, and especially when like everyone in our country is not happy with their presence in the first place. But, said the royal family, all of this oil is really valuable and it's really nice and we're getting super rich, so they're like, yeah, sure, set up the base. But there was one stipulation that the Saudis had for the Americans. You are not allowed to literally plant a flag.
He's not an
no
America
flags.
hater, bro. Calling America Satan doesn't mean you hate America. What do you know? Maybe he's a Satan worshiper.
You said satanic.
It's like calling what? Yeah, you don't know. Like, if it's 2026, if you ain't hating America, what are you doing, bro? Get on board, bro. You're late to the party, bro.
Of the United States. You cannot put your flag anywhere on this base. Instead, you can put a little plaque on the side of the building so that your flag is not literally on our soil.
And for those people who are new to the channel, we don't hate America. We hate the American government that is currently oppressing its own people in America.
And that was the deal. And that's exactly what
Free America! Free America!
happened. The U.S. sets up its first military operation.
You guys gotta
in the
throw
Middle
the
East
tea
in
in
the
the-
form of a landing
into
strip
the
that is right next to this oil field.
river again, or the harbor.
Okay, so all of this infrastructure that the Americans were building required someone to build it. They needed a construction company. And there was one construction company that the Americans really liked that helped them build their oil city and their base. This company was founded and run by a guy named Mohammed. Now
I
listen.
think this is also like the family, like he's the family of Saddam Hussein.
Do you think I'm really giving you the backstory on the construction company that built the airbase in the oil city just because that's interesting and I like to talk about construction? No, this is actually very relevant to the story, and you will see why very soon. So the Americans and the Saudis are having this forbidden oil bromance, and it's going really well.
Forbidden
and they
oil
are just-
bromance.
The oil is flowing, everyone's getting rich. And meanwhile, the rest of the Middle East is looking at Saudi Arabia and they're like, dude, WTF? Why are you like in bed with America? And like, why are you letting them set up a landing strip in your country? And the Saudi royals are like, do you realize how rich we're getting right now?
Dude,
like,
on this channel though, on this stream, we do love patriots though.
if you were in our position, you would do the same thing, Egypt. Okay, so it's the 1950s.
Respect
and
to all
let's
patriots.
get back to Mohammed, the construction guy. His company, by this point, is thriving. The
You
American
should love your
presence
country, you
in
should love
oil
your land,
is
you
just
should love your
exploding,
culture.
and he is building all of the stuff for it. And so this guy is just has
celebrate
a
it.
giant business. And he starts to have children. Well, in fact, he had a lot of children, like 54 children, because he had 22 wives, because that is a thing.
22
for children,
wives?
because he had 22 wives, because
Damn, bro was
that
never
is a
pulling
thing
out.
in Saudi Arabia to this day. Anyway, the point is, one of Muhammad's sons is named Osama.
Yeah, holy shit. No way.
I told you this was going to be relevant. Okay, a reminder that
I mean, with 54 children, you know, one of them is gonna like, you know, statistically speaking,
Saudi Arabia is not the entire Middle East.
one of them is gonna
So,
become
I'm going
like
to leave the
a
Osama bin
world
Laden
known-
cliffhanger for a moment
world known
to tell you what else was going on in the Middle East at this time.
guy, you
Remember
know?
that it was the hunt for oil that brought the U.S. to Saudi Arabia originally. But now, in the 50s and 60s, there was a new reason for the U.S. to think about the Middle East. And that reason is because there's another big superpower that has nuclear weapons, called the Soviet Union, who is coming into the region and saying to everyone, come join Team Communism. And the U.S. is like, hold my beer.
God, this is great editing.
So in addition
production.
to oil,
I
the
love
U.S.
it.
is now involved in trying to not let the Soviet Union have any power in this region. Over in Iran, there was a democratically elected leader that the U.S. didn't like. They thought he was maybe a little too friendly with the Soviet Union. So they worked together with the British.
They killed my
to
guy.
Literally overthrow
He was democratically elected, by the way.
the government of Iran so that they could install a dictatorial leader that was more friendly to the United States.
This is the guy we have on
Little
the
side
top
note
left.
here, the airport that I fly out of here in DC is named after the guy who like gave the go-ahead for this coup in Iran, John Foster Dulles. So I'm reminded of the whole Iran thing every time I fly. So the US has its oil thing. It's now involved in trying to prop up a dictator in Iran. There's another big thing happening that brings the US into the region, which is that the newly declared state of Israel is starting to piss off its neighbors and starting to look to the US for support. And the US gladly offers it, seeing Israel as a friendly nation in the region that could be a big proponent of support, and that brings the US involved. So I'm reminded of the whole Iran thing every time I fly. So the US has its oil thing.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
now
the
involved
history is
in
so...
trying to prop up a dictator.
The history is so deep that, you know, you gotta skip a lot of things, but...
Here in Iran, there's another big thing happening that brings the US into the region, which is that the newly declared state of Israel is starting to piss off its neighbors and starting to look to the US for support. And the US gladly offers it, seeing Israel as a friendly nation in the region that could be a big proponent of US interests. So the US starts to fund Israel with tons of money and fighter jets and all of these things to help them fight their wars against their Arab neighbors. There was a debate happening in the United
Your
States.
tax dollars, by the way, dear patriot in the chat.
On whether or not they should actually do all of this.
Your
to
father,
support
your
Israel
grandfather,
so
I
intensely,
don't know.
because they knew if they did, they were going to piss off all of the neighbors
But
in the Middle East.
your tax
and all
dollars
of the
for
neighbors
sure.
are the ones who
Your
had
father's
the oil.
tax dollars
In the
for
end,
sure.
the U.S. did decide to support Israel, and with that came a major backlash from all of these oil-producing
But
countries.
also, if they didn't support Israel, Israel was gonna blow up the whole place with like a really big nuclear bomb.
In the neighborhood.
It scared the shit out of Nixon.
Proportion that we probably haven't even begun to grasp it yet as far as the country is concerned.
Scenes like this are becoming all too common on both sides of
This
the
was
Atlantic.
all, by the way, this was all psyoped, and this was all manufactured.
America they are more
the
ominous.
whole like oil
They
problem
tell
was
the Arabs
manufactured.
that their oil weapon is wounding America, the country that supports and supplies their enemy Israel.
Or at least the
Eventually,
extension
this
of it was
backlash against
manufactured.
supporting Israel kind of calmed down. There was some peace talks, and anyway, let's get back to Mohammed, the construction guy, and his son Osama, because this is where it really starts to heat up.
We decided to put together this compilation of all our Middle East
Okay,
videos.
no, I
because
think the
there
whole thing was
are
manufactured.
transformative events happening in the Middle East right now. The recent attacks on Iran from the US and Israel have reshaped the Middle East and are doing that right now as I'm recording this. And hopefully these videos are providing some context. But keeping up with the headlines is proving to be really difficult because every
We're being sold to?
site that allows it organized duality for advanced event, like the Supreme Leader example in one attack. Frame Ayatollah news and headlines. I've used the app being a critical consumer of the news, and it's complete in what you see. It's complete in the Vantage plan, which is the plan to scan the whole picture.
This world of religious authority and deeply rooted traditions that is now being challenged by the wealth of oil and the Western invasion it has brought.
So it's now the 70s.
Western
and
invasion.
Mohammed bin Laden,
That's
the
right.
construction guy, is now insanely rich. His construction company is giant. His 54 children are also rich, and his son Osama is growing up and is in his 20s and is looking around at all of this stuff happening in Iran and in Israel and is starting to feel really uncomfortable with the notion of his family being so supportive of American presence in the Middle East and his government, this
That's
religious
based.
kingdom, home of Mecca and Medina, being so okay with the U.S. so embedded in the Middle East at this point. These are ancient holy lands. Why is my government
Saudi
and
Arabians
my
today
family
would never.
supporting this great Satan superpower coming in and becoming so involved in the Middle East? So bin Laden sets out on a lifelong quest to fight back against these superpowers, not just the US, but also the Soviet Union, invading the Middle East. He heads to Afghanistan, where the Soviet Union is invading Afghanistan, trying to take it over. Bin Laden wants to fight back. By the way, the same year in Iran, that dictator that the US put in gets overthrown in a giant religious revolution that gets rid of the old dictator that the US liked and puts in a religious government headed by...
Which was also, by the way, PSYOP. This was like, the old dictator was getting way too strong and in power and control of everything, and America just didn't have as much control as they wanted, because Iran was the backup to the Saudi Arabia, like to the other Arabic countries for oil. And so there was a lot of issues in these Arabic countries because of Israel's existence, and so they were like threatening to cut off the oil supplies or whatever, and so they were relying on Iran as like a source of oil. And so and so Iran was getting a lot of power, and coupled that with corruption and such, like corruption in the oil companies. The oil companies were very corrupted, and so like they started manufacturing a lot of and pushing a lot of PSYOP to kind of like hoping that the king would give up some of his power to kind of like turn into like the Emperor of Japan or the King of England. So how the monarchies are in these countries. But like instead the king was like, listen, if you guys don't want me, then I'm leaving, because I do this for you people, and I've heard you guys say that you guys don't want me, then you guys shouldn't have me. For your sake, I will leave. Essentially, I will heed your demand. And he left. And so that was bad, because they still wanted him to have some power, because he was supposed to be their guy in the country. And that fell through. And this guy, totally against it. So they lost their backup to, getting oil in this process. And these guys started helping fight against Israel as well, which was like now just more problem.
Guy, Ayatollah Khomeini.
Can you do this, please? Yeah, sure. I'll just watch this later. Of white American. Are white people even Aryan? I don't know. Filipinos, definitely. Gays, yes. 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 Latinos are... I would say they're accepted by society. Indians are... Koreans? I haven't met enough Koreans in my life. Bisexuals, kill them. Native Americans? Native Americans should stay shunned. No. Vietnamese? Go to, dude. The French? Kill them. Fat people? Gone. The British are? The British are accepted. Mixed race monsters? Shunned. Low functioning autists? God. Conversion therapy? No. The Chinese? Accepted by society. High functioning autists? Accepted by trans women? Honorary Aryan. Africans? Honorary Aryan. Accepted by society. African Americans? I guess accepted. American whites? I feel bad for American whites. Accepted. Japanese, honorary, bro. What are you talking about? Samoans, honorary for sure. Aero Ace? What is Aero Ace, bro? What do you mean, dude? This is the best. People who experience little to no romantic, bro, get them out of here, bro. Execute them. Where are they? Where were we doing this? Yeah. Arrow Ace, bro. Done. Get him out of here. Gypsies. Tsumugi. Who are the Tsumugis? Fairies out. Oh. Oh no. Oh no, get him out. The most unhonest list I've ever seen. What's unhonest about this? Boy, you're trying to box me in, bro. I got so many things, so many nuanced feelings about this. Barfogs? Who are the Brufogs? Brufogs? What can you not agree on in this list? What is flatulence? I need more. I don't understand. Am I just too normal to understand? Whose life is fully devoted to the sole purpose of creating big farts. So basically, like the Hawk Tuah girls. Women don't fart, bro. What are you talking about? What do you not agree with on this list? I mean, African Americans, I would say, like, shunned by society, maybe. That's the only thing I would change. Koreans, maybe I would say accepted, but not really. Like, maybe I would change this. Bring this up here. I mean, this just shows like, yeah, I'll put this like up here. No, accepted by society. I think they need that. Fat people need conversion. The French conversion. Bisexuals, maybe you can convert them. What are MBs, bro? Non-binary? I don't know, bro. Conversion? Shunned by society? Because you cannot really convert the MBs, bro. But also executing them doesn't make sense. And sometimes they're really good kinky. Is bad. Trans, lesbian, and gays are shunned by society. Listen, this is your problem. You just want to continue what already exists, and what exists is not working. Okay, you need to be better. You gotta be smarter. And everybody knows, if you've really met like real trans women, bro, they lit, bro. Like, they're honorary. Filipinos, maybe I'd say just accept it, but Filipinos are Latinos, you know what I mean? And most of the gays, lesbians, and trans are Filipinos. The trans men, maybe I would execute them. Trans women, I understand. Who are trans men?
Oh, beautiful.
So is trans men women who become men? Or is it men who become women? Female at birth who have male gender identity. Ugh. The phrase gender identity itself is crazy. No, get rid of trans men. Women who want to be men. Like, what is wrong with you? Tokai Teiyo. A legend. What? What are we on, bro? What is Tokai Teiyo? All right, thanks for coming on. All right.
This new government takes a bunch of Americans hostage and starts off hating the United States. And I mean, can you blame them? If someone overthrew the person I elected, I would be pretty pissed too. So anyway, back to bin Laden. He arrives to Afghanistan with a few things. Number one, a bunch of money. Remember, his family's like super rich. He also comes with construction infrastructure because he's like a construction guy. Like, his family knows construction and infrastructure building. But most importantly, he comes with an obsessive dedication to fighting back against any superpower that is invading the Middle East. So Osama joins in with all of these rebel fighters who are fighting back against the Soviet Union, and they fight a long, brutal war. By the way, the US was secretly loving this, loving that the Soviet Union was getting like beat back by these like rebel fighters. So they end up sending loads of weapons and money and support to these fighters, something that will come back to bite them a few decades later. Eventually, Osama and the Afghan fighters beat back the Soviet Union. It was 10 brutal years of war, and by the end, these fighters were battle-hardened. Osama was now completely dedicated to his cause of fighting back against superpowers who were coming into the Middle East. So he returns back to Saudi Arabia,
Osama bin
where
Trump.
he starts raising money and awareness for
Trump
his new
bin
group
Laden,
that
bro.
he started while he was in Afghanistan. It's called Al-Qaeda. And the mission of the group is to protect Islam through violently striking back against big superpowers coming into the Middle East. And Saudi Arabia's like, Osama, like, do you have to do this, dude? Do you realize how rich we're getting? Like, Saudi princes are living on yachts in the south of France and like flying in their private jets, and they're like, dude, chill. Like, it's fine, we get it, we don't like the United States, but like, can you like maybe chill? Our partnership with the United States is actually turning out to be really great, and I know, yeah, they're really into Israel and they're really bad and everything, but like, they buy our oil and they give us weapons and we're like doing just fine over here. Osama doesn't chill, and the Saudi government eventually takes away his passport, not letting him leave, and told him to hush up with all the
Osama's not a
anti-American
chill
holy
guy.
war talk. So Osama finds another plan to maybe win back the heart of the royals. Saudi Arabia has a next-door neighbor named Iraq who was run by Saddam Hussein, who Osama sees as a really bad Muslim, totally secular and brutal, and he's just like not a good guy. Saddam is also cashing in on the oil boom. He's building big palaces and statues of himself all over the country. Oh yeah, and he also used the oil money to build a giant army, like the fourth biggest in the world.
Damn.
With this massive army, Saddam decided that he could maybe multiply his oil reserves if he popped down to invade this little tiny country of Kuwait, where there's also loads of oil. This sort of freaked the Saudis out. If Saddam, with his giant army, could grab Kuwait, what would stop him from marching right across this desert into Saudi Arabia? So there's this moment that it's like the moment of infamy of this whole thing, where Osama goes to the Saudis and he says,
I volunteer as tribute.
He doesn't actually say I volunteer in tribute, that was Hunger Games.
I believe we have a volunteer.
But he effectively says, I have me and my battle-hardened men who like can go in and fight against Saddam and defend the kingdom. And the Saudis are like, no, we're not gonna like let this ragtag group of like rebel fighters fight off the fourth largest army in the world. And Osama's like, well, we beat the Soviets. Like, they're a big army with nuclear weapons and everything. And the Saudis are like, yeah, because you hid in the hills in caves in Afghanistan. Prince Sultan literally told bin Laden verbatim, quote, there are no caves in Kuwait. And then he asks them, what will you do when he lobs the missiles at you with chemical and biological weapons? Osama's response, we will fight them with our faith. And the Saudis are like, awkward? Sorry, dude, like... Instead, the king met with somebody else that he thought would make a much better fit than bin Laden and his faith fighters.
Wow.
Dick
Who is
Cheney
that?
had flown to Saudi Arabia the day after Saddam had invaded Kuwait. At this point, the bromance between the US and Saudi Arabia had cooled a little bit, as Saudi had gotten more and more flack for being in bed with the US. But even despite this, he told Cheney to come with as much force and as quickly as he could. And that is exactly what Dick Cheney did.
Ready and willing to employ all means necessary.
The US went insane here. They recruited 37 other countries, and then they sent more firepower in terms of ships and bombers and troops and all this stuff than you and
Wait, is this guy skipping the Iran-Iraq war? That would be
I
insane.
could ever imagine. It was insanity. And they totally crushed Saddam. Within a few weeks, they had pushed Saddam back and completely
Or
won
just
over
before
the
everything.
hearts of the royals.
Maybe it
the
is.
bromance is back in business.
I
So
think
now
he
you have
did
these
skip it
Saudis
because
that are
the Iran-Iraq war happened after the overthrow of the king, the revolution in Iran.
beaming at the Americans for helping them fight off Saddam. And you have a bunch of bases that the US set up to mount this attack. Way more than before. The US came with all of this firepower and manpower and bases and artillery, and then they just sort of never left. Something that really pissed off a lot of Saudis who were very uncomfortable with US presence to begin with. But the guy who was most pissed off than anyone in the Middle East at this point, Osama bin Laden, who had not only been rejected by his own country, but then who got chosen instead? But the great Satan, the United States, a power that Osama had built his entire life fighting against. So Osama bin Laden starts to double down on his original mission. He leaves Saudi Arabia and begins coordinating very precise attacks that could really only be coordinated by a guy who was good at technical details of a construction company and who had lots of money to fund it. He carries out attacks against the United States all around the world. And by the late 90s, he starts...
See, this is what you got to do with all your money. Coordinate world-changing events against the great evils.
planning the attack that would change our world forever. So this is just the first half of the story. What happens next is something that we're all kind of familiar with. In fact, I think we're all still kind of processing the US presence in the Middle East today and how that all went down. But it deserves taking a look at, and I'm not going to do that right now. I want to make a separate video for Iraq and Afghanistan and Israel and Iran and dive into each of these cases to show how the US presence in the Middle East is not just about oil. In fact, oil is becoming less and less of a vital aspect of the US presence as we have alternative sources of this sort of energy. Instead, our presence in the Middle East has become a fixture of how we think about foreign policy and how we think about the map. It's become so embedded in our military doctrine and in our foreign policy doctrine that it's proving to be really hard to think about how we could ever get out. One of the most important wars of the last 50 years is one that we don't hear about much. When in 1980, Iraq and Afghanistan and Israel and Iran, Iraq and Afghanistan and Israel and Iran, and dive into each of these cases to show how the US presence in the Middle East is not just about oil. In fact, oil is becoming less and less of a vital aspect of the US presence as we have alternative sources of this sort of energy. Instead,
My bad,
our
G.
presence in the Middle East has become a fixture of how we think about foreign policy and how we think about the map. It's become so embedded in our military doctrine and in our foreign policy doctrine that it's proving to be really hard to think about how we could ever get out. One of the most important wars of the last 50 years is one that we don't hear about much. When, in 1980, two of the Middle East's most powerful countries, Iran and Iraq, waged 8 years of some of the worst trench and chemical warfare since World War I, leaving both countries devastated. This is the war that fractured the Middle East into lines that still play out in nearly every conflict there today. It set the US and Iraq on a path that ultimately led to the American invasion, and it defined Iran's often hostile relationship with the wider world. This is the Iran-Iraq War. It's 1979, and Iran is in the middle of a revolution. The country is coming off of decades of being ruled by the Shah, a king that the US and UK had installed in the 50s after covertly overthrowing Iran's democratically elected leader. But after years of the Shah's corrupt autocratic rule, a mass uprising violently overthrows him, creating what becomes an Islamic republic, headed by an Ayatollah named Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini and a group of Shia religious scholars want to impose fundamentalist rule on the country and are hostile to both the Western powers and the neighboring Soviet Union. They establish a military force called the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, which is meant to protect their hold on the revolution and to suppress the other groups who helped overthrow the Shah. The US is watching all of this in shock. Their biggest ally in the region and a major oil producer has just turned from friend to fierce enemy. But the biggest tremors of this revolution are felt in the rest of the Middle East. Iran sends out radio broadcasts to Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Kuwait, and Iraq, calling for people to rise up and overthrow their own rulers. They're trying to export their revolution to their neighbors, to gain new allies in the region. Neighboring leaders, most of them Sunni Muslim, don't like this. Saudi Arabia's king fears being overthrown, just like the Shah was. And in Iraq, Saddam Hussein sees this Shia religious revolution on his eastern border and worries that the Shia majority that he rules over will rise up against him too. But he also sees this as an opportunity. Iran and Iraq have been fighting over this border territory for years. This waterway is a critical access point to the Persian Gulf, where both countries export their oil to the rest of the world. In a treaty between the two back in 1975, Saddam had to give up full control of this waterway, as well as access to oil-rich regions in what was now Iran. Saddam hates this treaty and is considering taking the waterway back by force. The Iranian Revolution has left the country weak and fractured. Khomeini and his Revolutionary Guard are still fighting other political factions for control. The Iranian military, which used to be funded and trained by the United States, is now weak, its leaders having been jailed or executed after the revolution. Iran's military would normally be able to crush Iraq in an invasion, but maybe not anymore. Saddam sees this as an opportunity to weaken a major rival. Saddam is also riding on a delusion that he himself is going to unify the Arab world under his leadership. If he invades Iran, maybe the rest of the Middle East will rally behind him against this new common enemy. He thinks it'll be a quick victory. So in September of 1980, he decides to prepare 10,000 Iraqi troops to cross the border to invade Iran. What's about to happen here isn't just the start of a new war. Saddam is kicking off a dynamic that will dominate the Middle East for more than 40 years. The fight between revolutionary change and status quo power. The war officially starts when Saddam sends his air force over the border in a surprise attack on Iranian air bases. His 10,000 soldiers cross from Basra into southern Iran. Further north, Saddam opens a second front to seize strategically located border towns and put pressure on his enemy. These air attacks mostly fail, and Iran responds with airstrikes of their own into Iraqi territory, hitting oil facilities. Iran still has sophisticated jets that the United States had given the previous regime. This gives them an edge in the air. The war quickly sucks in the rest of the region. Israel is among the first. It wants to keep these two adversaries occupied, fighting with each other, keeping both sides weak. So almost immediately, Israel secretly sells supplies and parts to Iran. This helps the Iranian Air Force keep planes in the air. Now, Iran and Israel are not friends, but Israel sees Iraq as a greater threat here, so they're willing to support. Iran needs to get its military organized if they're going to fight this war, so they release military officers that they had jailed during the revolution. War tends to unify a nation. And in this case, the fractured country of Iran is unifying around Iraq's invasion, creating this irony that Saddam is the one who actually cements Khomeini's hold on power. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait also step in here, giving billions of dollars to fund Iraq's war efforts. They want to weaken Iran and turn back its revolution. The Middle East is now dividing between, on one side, Arab states who are ruled by aging Sunni monarchies and strongmen who fear change, and on the other side, a Shia Iran, bent on revolution, on remaking the region in its image. China is also watching this war.
They say they will maintain strict neutrality, but they take the opportunity to sell weapons to both sides of the conflict. They eventually become Iran's top supplier of weapons. For most of 1981, the two armies are in a stalemate, with Iraq holding small but important stretches of border territory. The global powers see this stalemate and try to negotiate a ceasefire, hoping that this conflict that threatens so much of the global oil supply will end soon. What they don't know is that this is really just the beginning. Saddam agrees to the ceasefire, but Khomeini does not. This war has become so useful to his goals, unifying the country and keeping the military occupied so that it doesn't become a rival to his power. Khomeini needs the war to continue. So Iran demands that Saddam Hussein step down. They say the war will continue until his rule is ended. Saddam, of course, refuses, so Iran goes on the offensive. Their forces are now organized, their officers have been freed from jail, and they're able to recapture the territory that Saddam had taken, even pushing into Iraq. Saddam's hopes of a quick victory and a gain of some valuable territory are now dead, so he turns to the United States for support, and the US agrees to help. They hope to weaken Iran and its call for anti-American Islamic revolution across the region. So the US starts giving Saddam intelligence and satellite imagery on Iranian troop movement. Iraq also gets another big backer, the Soviet Union. The Soviets are at war in neighboring Afghanistan. Another
fucking how dude
in this region. So
world against Iran again.
Become a top supplier of weapons.
This is just Iran-Iraq war times 2.
Now,
bro, don't even at me, bro.
These two. It's a tense moment in the Cold War. The United States and Soviet Union are suddenly supporting the same side of this Middle East conflict, both backing the country that will support the status quo, nothing changing, allowing their great power struggle to continue as it has. But by the summer of 1982, Iran is now pushing into Iraqi territory. Much of their conflict. The United States and Soviet Union are suddenly supporting the same side of this Middle East conflict, both backing the country that will support the status quo, nothing changing, allowing their great power struggle to continue as it has. But by the summer of 1982, Iran is now pushing into Iraqi territory. Much of their campaign focused on the city of Basra.
My father was
Basra, it will cut off Iraq
in the Navy
from the
during
Persian
this
Gulf,
war,
preventing them from shipping out their oil. Iraqi forces are outnumbered here, so they start to dig in and build trenches, erecting barbed wire barriers, planting landmines, and surrounding the city to stop Iran from taking it. The fighting starts to resemble the brutal warfare of World War I, waves of artillery strikes, and the Iranian military resorting to human wave attacks where thousands of boys and men charge over open fields, leading to huge numbers of casualties. Iran is not successful in taking the city, but this attack does weaken Saddam, showing that he's vulnerable. And this is where we need to look to the north, to talk about the Kurds. The Kurds are a minority group in the north of Iraq. They've been long suppressed by Saddam Hussein, and they see this moment as an opportunity to break away from Iraq to make their own country. So Kurdish forces start fighting with the Iraqi army, taking towns and villages. So now Saddam is fighting two different armies, one of which lives in his own country. Iran starts sending support to the Kurds, who have a presence in this mountainous, oil-rich part of Iraq. If the Kurds can hold it and keep Saddam's regime away from all of this oil, it would have a major effect on this war. This is a big deal for Saddam, and he switches tactics to make sure he can control this northern area. He escalates by using chemical weapons against the Kurds as well as the Iranians. Shells filled with mustard gas, weapons that cause extreme burning and blindness, a weapon that is illegal under international law. But even still, the global powers who are supporting him mostly look the other way.
Wow.
The US starts sending technology and money to Saddam, even restoring official diplomatic ties with Iraq. This allows Iraq to buy technology from
This
the
reminds
United
me of the
States that helps them
Ukraine-Russia war.
develop their weapons programs, including the horrific chemical and biological weapons that he will soon be using on the battlefield. They need him to keep fighting, because this war has changed. It went from protecting Saddam from revolution
to now using Saddam to weaken Iran, so they keep supporting him, showing him that he can use chemical weapons without being punished. The chemical attacks help push back Iranian forces, and the war reaches a new stalemate. 1984 is the year that the oil war begins in this conflict. Iraq starts attacking Iranian oil tankers in the Persian Gulf, using new jets provided by France, a new entrant to this conflict.
Wow.
Saddam warns that he'll also attack any
Great.
ship going into Iranian
Europe
ports.
even backing
Iran
him up.
retaliates by attacking oil tankers carrying Iraq's oil. The oil that the entire globe relies on is now at the center of this increasingly brutal conflict. Hundreds of commercial ships are attacked by both sides, resulting in the death of over 400 civilian sailors. The U.S.
Shit.
has to send in 2 frigates and a guided missile destroyer into the Persian Gulf to
That's
escort
literally the
U.S.
situation
ships,
right now.
hoping that their presence will stop these attacks. Meanwhile, Iran is making progress on the ground, slowly taking territory from Iraq and continuing attacks on the vital port city of Basra. It's 1985 and Saddam is about to escalate to a new extreme. He starts shooting missiles and dropping bombs on Iranian cities all over the country, including the capital. This kills 16,000 people and leaves
Holy
many
shit.
homeless. Iran responds, striking Iraqi cities, firing these massive missiles, primarily at the capital of Baghdad.
I knew a lot of these informations because, you know, I grew up with it, right? I literally have, again, my father was there too. You know, anyways, but like, still, it's fucking crazy to listen to.
Baghdad. These strikes hit civilian targets like a school and a bus station with hundreds of casualties. Civilians on both sides are now caught in the crossfire of this
Literally what they're doing right now in Iran, though.
Escalating war. Their cities
Except we
and their homes
don't
are not
still don't
safe,
have
so
16,000
many
dead,
flee.
but
These
even
events
one is
leave
too
an
many.
entire generation scarred by the trauma of war and a disdain for the outside powers that have ripped their country apart. And speaking of outside powers, this is when the US starts double dealing. They start selling missiles to Iran, which gives Iran an edge against Iraqi forces,
Why
who
would
the
they do
US
that?
is also supporting. Behind all this is President Ronald Reagan, who wants to use the money from this deal to fund an anti-communist militia group in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
It's all supposed to
The
be a
Iran-
secret, but will
the
eventually
Iran
come out
Contra
and be known
scandal.
as the Iran-Contra scandal.
Yep. Called it.
Meanwhile, Kuwait is asking the US
Fucking, that's why you come to this channel, bro. We know things.
to be more aggressive
not
to protect their oil tankers.
some
Iranian
goy-
attacks on their ships have started to take a toll. The US is getting more involved in the war. Their presence in the Persian Gulf is growing. They start putting American flags.
Do you know how long a war has to continue for a president to be like, fuck it, let me just betray my original plan because there's other things happening that I need to like fund, and so they just go against their original plan because now they want to fund their new plan. This war went on for 8 years, and so I think one thing that people don't understand in today's war is that this is how Iran gets united. We have seen attacks of our cities before. Or, I mean, not the new generation, right? The new generation doesn't know anything, but now they do. And, yeah, this is how we get united. And we're ready to, you know, sustain ourselves for 8 years of war. I don't do unlimited amount of time, so...
Kuwaiti tankers to deter Iran from attacking them. And then in March of 1988, Iran partners with the Kurdish fighters to take over the Iraqi town of Halabja. The Kurds know that this is going to set Saddam off, and they brace themselves for a brutal retaliation. But what comes next is worse than anyone could have prepared for. The Iraqi army drops bombs and artillery shells containing deadly chemicals, blanketing the entire town with a cloud of deadly gas that sinks into homes and buildings and the underground shelters where many were hiding for protection. It's a brutal attack that kills over 5,000 Iraqi Kurds, mostly unarmed civilians. And it was a part of a broader campaign that Saddam was now waging to wipe out the Kurdish people entirely.
Wow.
He now had what he believed was a justification. So the Iraqi army starts going village to village, dropping chemical weapons on civilians and executing any survivors. This resulted in an estimated 50 to 100,000 deaths in
Damn,
what
they
has
don't
now
even
been
know the
deemed
real
as a
number.
genocide. One of the many war crimes committed by Saddam Hussein in what has now been deemed as a genocide. One of the many war crimes committed by Saddam Hussein. The US knows this is happening, and yet, according to now public documents, the official government line was to turn a blind eye, to blame everything on Iran.
Wow.
Saddam's
Okay,
horrific
blame
war
everything on Iran.
crimes
Isn't
project
that
new fear onto
things
the
we've heard
civilians
before?
in Iran, who now worry that a missile loaded with deadly gas could land on their cities. Many flee to take shelter in the mountains. And by now, after 8 years of devastating war, Iran's economy and social order is frayed. Their leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, is feeling the pressure to end this war. More than 1 million lives have been lost in this war. All sides are looking for a way out, and the UN Security Council is pressuring the parties to accept a ceasefire. Then, in July of 1988, a US ship in the Persian Gulf shoots down an Iranian passenger jet, killing all 290 civilians on board.
Why would they
the
do
US
that?
shakes it off as an unfortunate accident, saying that they mistook the airliner for a hostile F-16 fighter jet.
Wow.
They pay
Okay.
compensation to the victims' families, and President Reagan sends a letter apologizing. But the government never formally apologizes. And the captain of the ship who did this later received a medal, which
Wow.
fed a deep suspicion in Iran that this attack was deliberate, that it was a scheme to coerce them into accepting peace. Fear of more American attacks, along with a new offensive by Iraq, pushes the Iranian forces to withdraw from the country, and both sides finally accept a ceasefire. The war is finally
Sus.
over.
Sus,
and after
very
all of
sus.
this, the borders were unchanged from before the fighting. But in some ways, this was really just the first round in a larger conflict that has continued through to today. A war for the future of the Middle East. One that the United States is deeply involved in, but that most expresses itself as a Cold War between Saudi Arabia and Iran, who now fuel civil wars around the region in Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen, backing their own proxy fighters and making these conflicts worse. But another major takeaway here is that this war defined Iran's relationship to the rest of the world, especially the United States. Iranian hardliners came to feel confirmed in their belief that they could never trust an outside world bent on Iran's destruction and seemingly unconstrained.
Yeah, and now
gun
they're right
violence,
again.
leading some leaders to conclude that only nuclear weapons could stave off disaster from the outside. Saddam Hussein's Iraq emerged battered by this war, humiliated by this failure against Iran. He faced growing internal resistance.
This is when he started attacking Kuwait and,
from his people, which he suppressed with more and more violence. He also came out of this with huge war debts to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Angry that his allies had billed him to fight a war on their behalf, a few years later, Saddam invades Kuwait, seeking its oil, taking the spoils that he felt he was owed. And this is when his one-time backer, the United States, quickly turns against him, expelling him from Kuwait and beating him back in a swift 43-day victory, cutting him off from the world economy and turning him into a pariah, an enemy. A decade after Saddam had gassed his own people, the US finally blamed him for it, turning it into a byword for his cruelty and the centerpiece for their demand
Wow,
that he
typical
step
American
down.
move,
A few
Zio
years
move.
later, George W. Bush would cite these weapons of mass destructions, the ones that he would never find, as a reason to invade the country, to topple Saddam. Bush's war room was filled with the same officials who had covered for Saddam and his war crimes in the first place.
Wow.
And making it so crystal clear that even though this war between
Get me
Iran
out,
and
bro.
Iraq
That's
ended
literally
decades
happening
ago,
today. I
the
mean,
Middle
not
East we
really.
see today
Pete
is
Hegseth
built
is
off of
facing a
what
lot of
happened
backlash from
during
his
those
own
8
commanders.
brutal years.
Before we go into the next video, I just want to remind you that this is all made possible because of Ground News, the sponsor of this compilation. Ground News helps me do these deep dives by helping me compare lots of headlines and revealing the different biases and reliability of the facts in those headlines. You can go to ground.news/Johnny Harris to get 40% off their Vantage plan and start comparing headlines and seeing clearly into the news that you're consuming. In the summer of 2002, the director of the British intelligence agency MI6, Richard Dearlove, traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with the director of the CIA, George Tenet. The topic of the meeting was Iraq and its leader, Saddam Hussein. In the meeting, the CIA director shared classified information with his British counterpart, who then traveled back to London to 10 Downing Street, the home of the Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Dearlove told his Prime Minister everything about what was really happening behind the scenes in the United States. How the US was planning to invade Iraq no matter what. It was a highly classified meeting, but notes were taken and classified and put into a memo. That memo was later leaked to British author and journalist Michael Smith, who published it in 2005. And that's what we're looking at. A secret meeting, and the memo it produced, meant only for the eyes of top British officials. It was an explosive leak. What we see is that Dearlove tells his Prime Minister everything he heard in Washington a few days earlier, and that this was a very different story than the one the Bush administration was telling to the public. That an American invasion was inevitable, that Bush's people were fixated.
Bro, this is just
on
old
removing
news,
Saddam
bro. They're
Hussein
doing this today in this war as well. Lying through their teeth.
Power, no matter what. And that the US government was blatantly cooking up intel and facts to help sell their invasion.
That's a Zio move, by the way. Cooking up facts to sell their invasion.
This document shows us how power really works in our world. How a small group of people decided to topple a dictator, to occupy a country, and then invented a story to support their plan. It was a false story, but it helped them sell a horrifying war. It's a story that is revealed in detail by the Downing Street memo.
States like these constitute an axis of evil.
One last chance to avoid war. The entire world must know that we will take whatever action is necessary.
On September the 11th, enemies of freedom committed an act of war against our country. The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps in Afghanistan.
Let's start by looking at another document from the fall of 2001, when Deputy Secretary of Defense Paul Wolfowitz created this memo for his boss, Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense. This was just 10 weeks after the attacks that changed the course of history. But this document wasn't about that. It was about Iraq, a country that had nothing to do with 9/11. Rumsfeld reviewed the document before meeting with an army general. He marked it up with his notes, giving us insight into what the Secretary of Defense of the United States was really thinking about after 9/11. How this group of military leaders were set on, quote, building momentum to topple Iraq's dictator Saddam Hussein, to decapitate the government, a government that was no longer useful to them. Saddam Hussein had been a useful client to the United States, especially in the 80s when he was waging a war against Iran, an enemy of the United States. But those days were now over. Saddam had turned into just a troublemaker.
Wait, so Iran wasn't the enemy anymore?
In the region, creating instability that could threaten the U.S.'s easy access to
These
oil.
implications are
2 hours
crazy.
ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait. This conflict started August 2nd when the dictator of Iraq invaded a small and helpless neighbor.
And in many ways, Iraq was an old
Talking about
mess in
Kuwait.
need of cleaning up. A mess that Bush Sr. had failed to resolve during the first Gulf War. Iraq was supposed to disarm itself after that war, but had kicked out the UN weapons inspector teams. But that wasn't the main reason why right after 9/11 these guys were talking about invading Iraq. A bigger reason is that these leaders wanted to remind the world who the global superpower was. They needed to, after being brutally attacked on their own soil. A non-US friendly regime like Iraq couldn't be allowed to stand in a post-9/11 world. Or, in the words of Rumsfeld himself, hours after the towers fell, Quote, we need to bomb something else
Wow.
to show that we're big and strong and not going to be pushed around. Iraq and its leader was that something else.
Dude. Insane.
And now Bush and his advisors were looking at a plan to make it a reality.
It's just a show.
But how to start the war? Could they tie Saddam Hussein to something that Americans feared, like 9/11 or anthrax? Or could they tell a story about weapons of mass destruction? What other countries could they bring in to support their invasion? And of course, the most important consideration, Rumsfeld jots it here at the end, they would need an influence campaign. They would need to sell the war. And when should they begin? How about right away?
Iraq continues to flaunt its hostility toward America and to support terror.
3 months later, the president was telling the world that Iraq was one
Toward America.
out right away.
Iraq continues to flaunt its hostility toward America and to support terror.
3 months later, the president was telling the world that Iraq was one of a group of evil countries
Wow.
that the U.S. must oppose in the global fight against good and evil.
States like these constitute an axis of evil. The price of indifference would be catastrophic.
By the summer of 2002, this idea that Bush's advisors had scratched down after 9/11 was developing into an official policy. That handwritten influence campaign to sell the war was now in full swing.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction.
The Iraqi regime has been free to pursue the development of weapons of mass destruction.
We know they have weapons of mass destruction. There isn't any debate about it.
And this is
And they
exactly
never
what the
found
head
it.
of MI6 told Prime Minister Tony
Bro,
Blair at his house in the
get
summer
out.
of 2002 after meeting with the CIA in Washington. It's what we see in the Downing Street memo, that there was a perceptible shift in attitude in Washington, and that the U.S. invasion of Iraq was now seen as inevitable, and that they were now fixing intelligence around a decision that they had already made, and that the U.S. wasn't really planning to work with the UN. They didn't want weapons inspections or getting UN approval for military force. And crucially, the head of the MI6 tells the Prime Minister that these Bush people aren't really thinking much about the aftermath of such an invasion.
What is inevitable is not regime change, it is disarmament of weapons of mass destruction.
This memo wasn't supposed to be seen by anyone but just a few, and that's why we can learn from it. It serves as one of the most potent pieces of evidence that the Bush administration was maneuvering two very different stories. Their private story about the need to...
Right, so earlier we were talking about how they do these different cases, right? And early in the stream I said, like, because we were watching a video of Pete Hegseth giving a press conference saying that, you know, Iran is the aggressor. And so in the, you know, in the Strait, they're saying they're the aggressor in the Strait, right? But they're not talking about, they're separating a case where, like, okay, they're not talking about that Iran is acting this way because they started it, right? They're talking about, oh, but, you know, that's a different thing. Right now in the Strait, they're the aggressors, right? But then when it comes to this, where it's like clearly two different cases of WMDs and September the 11th, right? They combine it and say it's one, and let's go, okay, if you're gonna kill Al-Qaeda, then we gotta also get Saddam, because they're essentially the same thing. And they didn't find WMDs anyway, so
move a dictator to project U.S. power, which was
like they were accusing these dictators in the Middle East of wanting to continue their momentum, create momentum and continue. But here we are seeing them continuing their own momentum after fighting back Saddam and you know, getting their all the deals they want with the Arabic countries. But, and you know, Saddam losing, he was just chilling. I mean, not chilling, but you know, he was there. No WMDs, but they used their momentum to go after these so-called dictators. I mean, Saddam was a dictator. These dictators, they are dictators. So what I'm trying to say is, like, they are blaming, they are, how to say it, like, accusing others of their own crimes
stark contrast to the public story that they had to tell to sell the invasion. Their influence campaign.
Any country on the face of the earth with an active intelligence program knows that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
Because they knew that if they were really going to sell this war, they would need to convince not only the American public, but also Congress, and at least partially the international community. What we learn in the Downing Street memo is that they had settled on two main focus points for their story. That Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, and that they're also working with the masterminds of 9/11. Not long after this meeting between MI6 and the CIA, Bush and his allies ramp up their influence campaign to sell their war.
We've learned that Iraq has trained Al-Qaeda members in bomb-making, poisons, and deadly gases.
The sales pitches to the American people for invasion of Iraq
made up facts, by the way.
Certainty.
They lied.
Certainty that Iraq had WMDs.
He had agreed, and the UN had agreed, that he would not have a WMD program.
And we know that for a fact because the Al-Qaeda leader at the time, Osama bin Laden, was in direct conflict and against Saddam Hussein.
He does have one.
Certainty that they wanted to use them against Americans and American allies.
Simply stated, there is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction, that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us.
Certainty that Iraq was harboring terrorists.
And Al-Qaeda terrorists escaped from Afghanistan and are known to be in Iraq.
And certainty that Iraq was working on obtaining nuclear weapons.
And Iraq's state-controlled media has reported numerous meetings between Saddam Hussein and his nuclear scientists, leaving little doubt about his continued appetite for these weapons.
And these speeches were working. By the fall of 2002, Americans were in favor of an invasion of Iraq by just a narrow majority. But there was just one problem, that all of these statements were lies. Indeed, this was already known in the secret rooms of Downing Street, that the US was fixing their facts and their intel to match their already made decision. Iraq's supposed links to Al-Qaeda were based on one interrogation of a guy whose testimony lacked, quote, specific details, and who was intentionally lying about it to mislead his interrogators. Bush and his allies knew this. It was clearly documented back in February of 2002. And yet, publicly, the scary story about Al-Qaeda being in Iraq continued to be sold by Bush and his people.
The Iraqi regime has plotted to develop anthrax, nerve gas, and nuclear weapons for over a decade.
The case for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was equally thin, and senior officials knew it. Like in September 2002, when Donald Rumsfeld received this report from the Joint Chiefs assessing what real evidence there actually was for WMD in Iraq. The report is shockingly honest, and it says that the conclusion that Saddam has WMD, quote, relied heavily on analytic assumptions and judgments rather than hard evidence. That's word salad for it was speculation and conjecture. The report goes on to say that they didn't have anything solid on nuclear weapons related facilities, and concludes that they don't know of any facilities where Saddam may be producing or testing biological weapons. And so we know now that they had almost no evidence for their story about why the US should invade Iraq. And yet, even knowing this, they kept selling the same story, convincing the American people.
There's no doubt in my mind he wants to have a nuclear weapon, and he's got some capacity.
Wherever threats are forming against our country, we will respond.
But they couldn't go on like this forever. They knew that if they were really going to sell this war, they were going to need to show real, convincing evidence, not to the people, but to Congress. And this is where we get another instance of fixing the intelligence to fit the policy.
They're doing that right now.
2002, when President Bush asked Congress to give him the authority to invade Iraq. In response, Senate leaders requested an immediate national intelligence estimate, which is a report from the entire intelligence community meant to help Congress make informed decisions. This could be really bad for Bush and his allies. So he and the CIA get hard at work pulling together a report that fits their story, intelligence to back up all their public statements and speeches. They come out with this highly redacted report that they deliver in October of 2002. The report makes some very strong claims. They claim that Iraq has been building more WMD, that they have chemical and biological weapons, and that they will have a nuclear weapon during this decade. And to congressional leaders, this appeared rock solid. Here was the entire intelligence community coming together saying that Iraq had horrific weapons, and that they wanted to get more.
Saddam Hussein has composed a scarlet chapter of terror. Our only responsible option is to confront this threat before Americans die.
There is no such thing as a Democrat or Republican war.
So in that same month, based on this report and all of these public speeches, Congress gives the green light for war. But this national intelligence estimate was deeply flawed. It was a perfect example of the fixed intelligence described in the Downing Street memo. It was put together in less than a month, totally rushed. The report had been plagued by groupthink and directed by political pressure, with the Bush administration pushing analysts to deliver a report that matched their conclusions that they had already come to months earlier. And they did this using very old intelligence. The CIA hadn't had any human assets on the ground for years, so their report wasn't even based off of anything after 1998. But it didn't matter. Bush and his allies had successfully sold the war to Congress and the American people. But there was one last hurdle. It was the international community, which would mean they would have to face the UN process that they apparently had no patience for.
Iraq has answered a decade of UN demands with a decade of defiance.
So it's November 2002, and in response to the rising tensions between Iraq and the US, the UN Security Council passes this resolution, 1441. It was a measure that was meant to give Iraq a final opportunity to comply with weapons inspections, to show the world that they had fully disarmed and had no weapons of mass destruction. Bush and his allies saw this as an opportunity. If they could somehow show that Iraq wasn't complying with this new inspection process, this resolution implied that they would be justified in invading the country. Their long-desired war would be on. But they had a problem, which is that Iraq and Saddam Hussein were complying with the weapons inspections. Over the course of 4 months, UN weapons inspectors searched Iraq from top to bottom. They were led by Hans Blix, the former head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. They conducted over 900 inspections at over 500 locations, and they didn't find anything. No WMD.
Literally what's happening in Iran today.
No nuclear weapons programs.
Previously, but
Iraq has on the whole cooperated rather
the
well.
IAEA went to Iran. They were free to go whenever, and they did. They would literally have surprise inspections and never ever found anything.
Access has been provided to all.
So that's why they just pushed the war to happen for no good reason.
All sites we have wanted to inspect, universities,
But they're
military
losing,
bases,
so
residential sites and private residences.
I don't even know anymore.
Hans Blix did find 2 things that were important. First, they did find some ballistic missiles that the UN says have an effective range that makes them illegal, so they would need to be destroyed by Iraq. And second, there were some chemical weapons that the Iraqi regime said cannot be accounted for. But Blix insists that this does not mean that they have these weapons. It just means that they need more time to work out the accounting situation. But this error was exactly what the Bush circle needed to justify their invasion.
2 little things.
I call now on the distinguished Secretary of State of the United States of America.
They sent their most respected cabinet member to the UN, Secretary of State Colin Powell. He came equipped with photos of what he says are mobile weapons facilities.
Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
He plays tapes that he says prove that the Iraqis are hiding their weapons.
We evacuated everything to make sure it was not around when the inspectors showed up.
And then he says that this is solid evidence that shows that Iraq is violating the UN resolution that told them to disarm. This whole thing contradicts what the UN weapons inspectors had found in their hundreds and hundreds of inspections. They bulldoze the process and say they have justification to invade.
My colleagues, we have an obligation to see that our resolutions are complied with.
They've got the American public on board, they've got Congress on board, and now the UK is in lockstep.
This is the time for this House to show that we will stand up for what we know to be right. To show that we will confront the tyrannies and dictatorships and terrorists who put our way of life
Crazy
at risk.
Zios.
The Bush administration abandons the UN
And now we know it was all the
process, and that
Zios.
March, his people do what
Whoever
they
that's
set out
pushing
to
for
do
war
18
when
months
there's no
earlier,
need.
when they were looking
Zio.
for something else to bomb, to show who's really in charge on the world stage.
My fellow citizens, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
The thing is, like, they were able to get the American people on board, the Congress on board, and the international community on board, to go to war. And the difference, but in the war with Iran, they weren't able to do that.
America faces an enemy who has no regard for conventions.
And also they prepared to go to war with Iraq, but they didn't do that with Iran.
War or rules of morality.
Sort of like Israel just did it.
Bush's war took the life of an estimated 500,000 Iraqis and thousands more who fought for their country. And over the course of a decade occupying Iraq, no weapons were found, no nuclear facilities, no mobile weapons labs. In fact, it seemed like Iraq had dismantled its nuclear program back in 1991 and the rest of its chemical and biological weapons just a few years later. After the invasion, the US never allowed the UN inspectors back into the country to help with their search. The US would never find a way to link the Iraqi regime to Al-Qaeda or to anthrax. Colin Powell, the Secretary of State, who played a major role in selling this war to the international community, would later say that he regrets his part in starting the war.
Deeply regret that some of the information I presented, which was multi-source, was wrong.
Hans Blix, the chief weapons inspector for the UN, would comment later that year that it is sort of fascinating that you can have 100% certainty about weapons of mass destruction and zero certainty about where they are. We may never know what was in the heart and minds of these senior leaders, whether they truly believed their own lies, whether they felt justified in the choices they made. But what we can learn from this story is how these leaders behaved when they thought no one was watching, when they thought they could tell a compelling story to the public while having a totally different set of motivations, and how with enough fear and enough deception, you can lead an entire society into an unprovoked war, changing the course of history in the process. Up in the Zagros Mountains have long lived a people called the Kurds. They're a people with a centuries-long history of fighting back against invaders who have crossed through their lands, resisting conquest in the name of defending their shared cultural identity, some living as nomads, a people with no friends but these mountains. Eventually, the Ottoman Empire did take over all of this territory, but even then, the Kurds maintained large amounts of autonomy and freedom in their land. Then came World War I, when the European powers defeated the Ottoman Empire and conquered all of this. The winners got together and discussed how they would carve it up between them. If you look back at old European maps, you'll see that all of this area would be labeled Kurdistan, an area where the Kurdish people lived and had some self-rule. So while drawing these lines, the British wanted to mark all of this as Kurdish territory, paving a way for an independent country for the Kurds. But the new leader of Turkey opposed this plan. He didn't want to give all this land and resources to the Kurds. So he pushed the European forces out of Turkey. They gave up on this plan to give the Kurds their own land. And in the end, instead of drawing borders around the Kurds, the Europeans drew borders through them. What could have been Kurdistan was now 5 different territories. The Kurds split between them. But at first, these were just lines on a map, and the Kurds continued to move through this region. Eventually, the Europeans left, and these became independent countries with leaders who wanted to consolidate and centralize power. So these lines hardened, restricting the Kurds' movement and their livelihood in this region. But even still, across this region, the Kurds didn't give up on their idea of someday gaining independence, self-rule, or maybe even a country of their own.
I say
Throughout
give
the 1900s, the Kurds in each of these new countries took
Kurds
different
a
approaches
state, no?
to fight for an independent Kurdish state. Some Kurds would use politics, others would use violence. The early uprisings were crushed by the leaders of these new countries, who saw the Kurds as a threat to their efforts to unify their country around a common language and culture. Like in Iran, where the Kurds had some political rights, but they fought for more. They wanted autonomy and independence. The government of Iran wouldn't have any of this. They would crack down with violence on the Kurds, often supported by Western powers. By the 1970s, Iran was going through a revolution, and the Kurds tried again to rise up. But this new regime had no tolerance for a group that would challenge the leadership of the ruling religious leader. So once again, they were put down. Over in Iraq, Kurdish fighters fought hard against the government throughout the 20th century, until the 1970s, when this new regime came in and made a deal with the Kurds, saying that they would be recognized as an ethnic group and would be guaranteed political representation. It seemed like a huge deal for the Kurds, but it turned out to be a false promise. The Iraqi regime, now led by Saddam Hussein, would continue to repress the Kurds, eventually dropping deadly chemical weapons on Kurdish towns in Iraq, systematically killing thousands of Kurdish civilians in a genocide supported by American-made supplies that were sold to Saddam. Over in Syria, the Kurds were treated decently under the French-controlled government. They were citizens and had some rights. But after the French left in the 40s, the regimes that came after oppressed the Kurds, and by the 1970s, the Syrian government was arresting and deporting them, taking their land and giving it to Arabs. In total, the Syrian government would remove 140,000 Kurds from the country. Decades later, Syria and the United States would both find the Kurds in Syria useful for their political goals. But first, let's talk about Turkey. There's more Kurdish people here than in any other country. The same government that had fought against a Kurdish state early on continued to oppress the Kurds, denying them citizenship, outlawing their language, and keeping them out of politics, all with the goal of wiping out their culture from Turkey, as a part of this Turkification campaign, which tried to unify Turkey under one culture, targeting the Kurds and other ethnic minorities. Some Kurds fought back against this in the early years, but were quickly crushed by the Turkish state, leading to the creation of an armed insurgent group with communist ideology. They're called the Kurdish Workers' Party, or PKK, and it would become one of the biggest Turkish resistance movements. The PKK would use violence, like suicide bombings and improvised explosives, as well as youth militia fighters against the Turkish government, tactics that they say are the only way to fight back against such oppression. And as a result, Turkey and most Western powers consider the PKK a terrorist group. So, that's how the Kurds in these four countries became locked in a conflict with their governments. They all have different struggles, but they're all unified by the dream of some version of Kurdish independence. But it doesn't take long for these regimes to see that they could use the Kurds as a tool, as a weapon. One of the earliest examples of this happens at the end of World War II, when the Soviet Union sees an opportunity to gain land and access to oil by supplying and arming the Kurds in Iran, allowing them to rise up against the government and declare their own country, supported by the Soviet Union. But it didn't work. The US pressures the Soviets to leave, and now without support, the government of Iran, which is backed by the US and UK, go on to crush this movement of Kurds in their country. The Kurds are back to being repressed by the government. In the 1980s, Syria uses the Kurds as a weapon against its rival Turkey, when it allows the PKK to start operating within Syria, giving them money and weapons so that they can hurt Turkey. Syria is doing this in spite of having spent years removing hundreds of thousands of Kurds from its own country. This escalates the conflict between these two, and Turkey threatens to invade Syria. So Syria backs down and kicks the PKK out to avoid being invaded, showing once again how the Kurds' willingness to fight can easily become a pawn in the geopolitics of the region, discarded once they aren't useful anymore. In the 1980s, Iran and Iraq both used the Kurds at the same time as a weapon to hurt each other, even as both countries are cracking down on Kurds in their own country. Saddam Hussein funds and arms the Kurds in Iran, while Iran funds the Kurds in northern Iraq, both sides hoping to spark a Kurdish uprising that will distract and weaken their enemy.
In Iraq, Saddam Hussein retaliates against the Kurds in his country with that genocidal chemical attack we talked about earlier that killed at least 50,000 Kurdish people and probably much more. Once again, the Kurdish dream of independence was used by outsiders as a weapon, and the Kurdish people paid heavily for it. The US would get involved when, in the 90s, they would come to this region fighting against Saddam Hussein for the first time. The US rallies the Kurds, calling for them to overthrow Saddam. George Bush Sr. literally calls them to action with television and radio broadcasts throughout the country.
That the Iraqi people should put him aside, and that would facilitate the resolution of all these problems that exist, and certainly would facilitate the acceptance of Iraq back into the family of peace-loving nations.
And it seems to work. It sparks an uprising that looks successful at first. The US had instigated this uprising, and they have forces in the region that they could send to support the Kurds, but they do nothing. This allows Saddam to regather his forces and crush this coup, and to increase this oppression, ensuring that nothing like this ever happens again. Now, the US and UK do eventually step in to create this no-fly zone, meant to protect the Kurds in the north and the Shiites in the south. This gives the Kurds some autonomy over their region and protects them from further airstrikes by the Iraqi army. Soon, the US is back in Iraq. It's 2003, and the Bush administration decides to invade and remove Saddam from power. The Kurds in Iraq hope that the US presence in this region will mean finally they will get their own state. They will be independent. They join the US in fighting against Saddam and his loyalists, battling insurgents and later against ISIS. The Kurds would even go on to hold a vote, showing that 92% of the population was in favor of independence. But the US won't support them.
Alright, I'm gonna stop the stream here today. Thank you for coming to the stream. I know I missed somebody's comment on Kick saying hi Rudy. Hi back to you if you're still in the chat. I apologize. Other than that, thank you for coming. I'm gonna spend the rest of my day editing videos and probably watching the rest of this video as well. But just to end it, give a summary of the news, war news today. Iran said they did not attack the Fujairah port, so no one knows where the attack in Fujairah comes from, and warned the UAE to stop sheltering and helping the American-Israeli forces, or else they'll have to take action. And you know, PTEX is calling Iran an aggressor.
Iran is the clear aggressor,
which is kind of weird.
Harassing civilian vessels, threatening mariners from every nation indiscriminately, and
but
weaponizing
why?
A critical choke point for its own financial.
Right, and then Trump still continuing with the same narrative as 2 months ago, saying that Iranian military is wiped out and they should give up. But
Iran has no chance.
He's been saying that since after the first week of the war, and nothing's been happening. Oh yeah, the PGSA, Persian Gulf Strait Authority, is you know, they're building the system for people to start paying tolls properly, not get scammed, and actually be able to pass through the strait with Iran's authority. And you know, with this framework, the Strait of Hormuz is reinforced as Iran's sovereign territory, which is big. Yeah, so you know, we're watching videos about Kurdish people. The Kurdish, there was a attack on one of these Kurdish, maybe it was a PKK thing, got their headquarters. And then Donald says, oh yeah, and they're in talks to Donald Trump says they're in talks for an agreement that will, based on the requests of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaigning. Whatever. Lies. Progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran. We have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom, whatever, will be paused for a short period, and to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. So, yeah, the Freedom Project, what came out of it was several missiles hit U.S. military patrol boat, attack from an unknown origin to the Fujairah, and increase in gasoline prices. What are the gasoline prices today? They're like over 100 a barrel, which is very expensive. Beginning of the war, it went up to like a 90, 80, and that was a lot. I think before that. So, yeah, and the foreign minister, he's now in Beijing. And it's been noted that he's not wearing a suit, which is kind of strange. He always wears a suit. And he does look very tired, exhausted, understandably so. Traveling to China takes a long time. And you know, like, the problem with air travel right now is you never know when Israel will shoot you down, you know? It's very stressful, I can imagine. Yeah, so that's a summary of today's news. I mean, this is just internal news. We already read this. This is a whole other thing that it's just extra layers of different perspectives. This news channel is more, what do you call, like pro-war, not pro-war, but okay, I don't know to what extent they're pro-war, but they're definitely pro-Trump, pro-Israel, pro-whatever. But you know, the good thing about them is that they highlight like what's going on inside the country, and they actually trust and believe these guys. So it's not a for summary thing, but honestly, for my viewers, it would be good if I did. I'll start doing that from next stream. And then thank you for coming on. Have a great day. خیلی دوستتان دارم. عشق. سلامت باشین. به امید دیدار.